Hello everyone, Ceri the Crafter here, that's Ceri the Crafter, and I'm here with the final flip through. Don't know what I'm talking about? This is what I'm talking about. It's July 2024 and I've come to the end of hashtag GelyPostcardPlay. It was a challenge I put out there for the artistic community, for the creative community. Basically, it's a daily challenge, 31 postcards over the 31 days of July, although you could do 31 consecutive days whenever you choose, because this challenge can be done at any point. That was just when I started it off. Yeah, go to the playlist and watch it from number 1 all the way through, and you'll see how I made every one of these cards. And there's a chunk of cards, so we're going to go through them one at a time, have a close look at them, see what I liked, what I didn't like, basically have about a chat about some will be quick, some won't be quick. So this was number 1. And I must admit, this was a fern from my own garden that I printed onto my gel print, and I love that. That was just absolutely beautiful. It sort of set the tone for me and I loved it. Number 2, I kind of went Oriental, and all of this postcard was actually inspired by this little lady working behind a bar. And it just, I don't know, she was a strange little girl. She certainly was. But again, it made me smile. It's funny because with all of the postcards you'll see, so if you went onto any social media, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you are, and you typed in that hashtag and hit enter, you will end up with loads of videos and tutorials and images and shorts and reels and stories all about the postcards the creative community has created, and they're inspiring. They're absolutely phenomenal. However, I found that a lot of us lent into the Oriental sort of feel for postcards, which I found that interesting. Did find that interesting. Okay, every one of these is done with a slightly different technique or a play on a technique in a different way. So this was foam stamping with acrylics. Loved how this turned out. It was absolutely beautiful. This was working with napkins. Again, I love working with napkins. It's basically art on the fold, isn't it? And I loved it. I'm using my own foam stamp there, circled that because one of the criteria was every postcard had to have a number representing the day on which it was created in July. Now on to this one, when all the Egyptology here. Loved this. This was a stenciled piece I cut into a pyramid. Completely fluke that it became a perfect pyramid because that wasn't measured, that was eyeballed. And I created my own little hieroglyphics down the side. This was a foam stamp designed by Michelle at the Creative Cove. And I love that. That was one of my favourites, I must admit. I can't say there's any that was absolute favourite because there are so many that I think are almost my favourite. This was purely a clean-up sheet of tissue where I just stamped into the specific area, showing the techniques of masking off areas you didn't want to contaminate with stamping. And I turned it into an abstract for number 6. Like that, really quick, simple technique, but it gave you a really impactful postcard. Now, if you chose not to put the number there, you could have stamped another piece of pattern there. That could be attached to the front of a 5x7 greetings card, a blank one, and sent out as a greetings card, because the postcards are supposed to be 4 inches by 6 inches. This one, love this. This was a magazine image I found, and this was part of a free download from PM Artist Studio. Mariah there created a list of 1 to 31 in numbers, and she did them in 2 sizes, and this was one of them, the number 7. What else did we do on here? We did that using a hole punch as creating a template, and then I sponged the moon in, put the detail. But I like this one. This one was everyone loved this one as well. They liked the fact that I cut the fingers of the glove so that he was actually holding the number. I like that one as well. Now this one's a pretty one. This one got a lot of likes. This was one of my book page butterflies. There is a video on it. I'm not going to link all of the videos to all the different techniques, guys. if you just look up Ceri Griffiths, book page butterflies, or even butterflies, one of the videos, I think I've done 2 videos on this technique and how to do it, but I loved it. And I'm not a lover of pink as a color, but you know, all of that just worked really well together. And I would never have put this almost military green color with pink and white, but you know, it worked. I was happy with it. This one was a bit of a dare for myself. Now, I'd never freehand drawn something like that, so I drew the leaf with a Posca pen. Then I went around and put the loose stuff around it, then actually fussy cut it and stuck it on here, and I happened to find that butterfly that was absolutely perfect for this. It was a great one. Lots of conversation about this. I really enjoyed that. I'll be doing more of this in the future. I've not done that. I can't remember who inspired me to do that. Completely slipped out of my mind. I'm sure if you watch the video on how this is made, I'll probably mention who inspired me. Oh, this one was so talked about, my crazy bird. Well, actually not my crazy bird, as I've said in the video on how I made this. This was made with watercolor blobs on water, and it just basically became blobs of color. Then you connected it all together to make this fantasy, a little bit of a lunatic bird, should we say. It was a process or a method I learned from Patricia at PM Artist Studio, and I loved it. And I've got a whole load of these made. I just absolutely adore those. And the background, again, gel prints had to be present in some way. It didn't always have to be the background. Some of them, it was just a tiny little strip on there, but there needed to be something produced on or a side product of a gel print. And this was just a gel print that was stamped with some of my foam stamp collection. This one was also very, very popular. Basically a really simple postcard. This was a fussy cut from a book. These were a couple of pre-made labels. That was a bit of a pre-made label. This here, the textural stuff, was actually the binding out of an old book. And I came in and just did some textural stamping of acrylic paints just with found items to give me that texture in the background, and I loved that. That was very, very popular. And owls did feature quite a few times in the challenges, and I can see why. We're all like a nice owl. Okay, this was sort of my pop culture, back to the 70s, 80s sort of hit, and the background was made with my arty labels. I'm sure if you followed me, you've seen me making the arty labels. I basically use sticky labels I've either bought in the charity shop, thrift shop, or I picked them up when I've gone to like the what they're called, discount bins in stationery stores, and I just clean my brayer off and I stamp on them, and then I use them for packaging, for labels, or here I actually just collaged different ones together to give me an interesting background. So another play on an idea. You guys really loved this one. This was Lady Luck. There was a whole story about who this lady was, about why there's a magpie, lucky lady, playing cards, a tombstone. This was very popular, and I loved this one. I love most of them, to be honest. I created them, so I like to like my art. I do still think there's 1 or 2 in here I wasn't hugely impressed with, but still I enjoyed the technique. Yes, so this one, this was something I really did like. And what's going to happen to all of these? I do still have to go in and sign the backs and date them, but there's 31 of them, so that's going to take some doing. And then these will go into my collection of postcards. I have an album with postcard sleeves in them, and they'll go into there because this was the first ever challenge I did, and I want to keep it as a memory. I do know people like Darcy Sanders has actually made 2 of each postcard for each date, and she's keeping 1 whole collection for herself, and then she's going to do giveaways for the other 31s, an individual postcard to individual people. So I like that idea. I came back around to the Chinese or Oriental theme for number 14, and that's probably the smallest number I used on any of the postcards. That I signed all of mine as well. It wasn't a rule that you had to sign them, but I always feel that if you created something, you should sign it. This was about embossing gift wrap tissue, and Nearly everything in this challenge that was on tissue paper was actually done with gift wrap tissue paper. I purposely tried to stay away from wet strength tissue paper because everybody has access to gift wrap tissue paper or the back of a napkin, whereas the wet strength tissue paper isn't available to everyone purely because of location or maybe even because of budget, because it's not the cheapest thing out there. Now, this was actually inspired by Nicole at Relax Cut Glue. Nicole did the challenge and did a fabulous job at it. And every one of her postcards was, I think it had a theme tune to it. Like there was an Elvis one. Was there a hound dog one? Or was that the hound dog one? Okay, anyway, every one of them had music playing with it, which I feel inspired it. And Nicole is great at taking brayer-offs or pieces of gel prints and creating a scene. And I wanted to have a go, so I did. And I like that. That was number 15. Now, I did try to err on the side of a little more traditional for my journal followers, and I made this kind of as I would a journaling card. And if anyone has done these postcards, remember they can go on the front of a blank greetings card. They can also go into a journal as a journal card. I mean, it's how you use it is up to you. And I'd fussy cut these flowers and I made the background out of postage stamps, and I love that. But I had too many flowers for here, so I used only the peonies on number 16, but on number 17 I used the roses. And there's a whole story about why it's called The Smell of Success. Have to watch the video for that one. And the background is just made with regular washi tape, just glued down in strips. And yes, it did have, what's it called, a gel print in it, because those little areas there, and on the one before, this was a gel print that I stamped onto. So there had to be something from a gel print on each one of them. This one, I was so pleased with how this turned out. I've been on a doodling journey for 2023, 2024, and it's an ongoing thing, and I'm really getting into enjoying it now. So I did this live, and this was a negative space left by a real leaf from my garden when I did the prep work. So I came in and utilized it as the shape of the leaf. This was one of my new stamps that I launched in July. I want to say it's Mark Maker's Sleepers, I think it is, something like that. Loved it, and it turned out really well. So many comments about this looks like Aboriginal art, this looks like native art. There was no intention to be any of that, but I can see exactly what you're saying. I think it's the earth tones and the colours I chose within it, and the background was purely just a cleanup of the gel print after I took a print of the leaf. This one. Okay, number 19. My friend Miriam from Art Curious on YouTube created a set of masks with these little fish for PM Artist Studio. And when I saw them, I requested, could they be made into stamps? And I think Mariah got a bit sick of hearing me going, can we have them as stamps? Can we have them as stamps? Can we have them as stamps? And eventually Mariah made them as stamps. And of course I got them immediately. There's another size bigger than this. And basically there's two sets. There's small, medium, and one that's probably about half as big again as that, facing left, and the same set facing right. And I'm going to go in, I think I'm going to buy the rest of the set because I can see me using these again. This was acrylic paint just stamped over tissue paper that had been gel printed, which gave me the fish, and I love that. Oh, this was also Green Maiden Fern. It was a new foam stamp I launched in July as well to give me that layered effect of the greenery. Love that. This was very popular and I absolutely adore that card. I need to do this again. I do. I love that one. Now, this one caused some confusion because, as you've heard, I said there had to be something from a gel plate or side product from a gel print on every postcard. And a lot of people didn't realize that this, the beetle, was actually stamped onto gift wrap tissue using my gel plate as an acrylic paint ink pad. So this is another stamp that's designed by Michelle at Creative Cove. I stamped it in acrylic paint. I then stamped it onto gift wrap tissue. Then I tore it out and stuck it down. So this is where the gel print was. And I tried to keep a really limited palette with this one. And I think it really worked. I loved it. Bugs are not everyone's cup of tea, but it worked for me and it worked for several of you. Okay, 21. I was having a fun day. This was me just channeling my inner Nicole. This was from Relax Cut Glue. Nicole helped me, not on purpose, but watching her videos helped me on my journey of glue booking. For years, I've glued images down into my planner. You probably already know that. I like to use up the spare space in my planner to put magazine images and down. And then I started creating a glue book, but I never really got into it until I discovered Nicole at Relax Cut Glue, and her approach and her methodology for glue booking really put me on the road to enjoying it, where now glue booking is one of my mindful practices, and I love it. And this was completely inspired by her techniques, and I just made me laugh. And it made you guys laugh as well. And a lot of you do remember the song Wiggle, Wiggle It, Wiggle It. Anyway, you have to watch the video for that one. Now, I have been on a watercolor journey as well. I mean, this challenge for me was sort of a culmination of a lot of practices I've been trying to fine tune, and this was watercolor. And I wanted to show how I could combine simple techniques to create a butterfly with stamping to give depth of field, just to make a panel which I then put onto a gel printed postcard. But this alone could have been, I could have a hole in the top, it could have been a tag for a journal, it could have been the panel on the front of a blank greetings card, it could even have been the feature piece, either that or as this on the front cover of Butterfly or a botanical journal. Loved that. You loved it too. And I was lucky enough, this was launched on July 22nd, and I found July 22nd in what's it called, thing you put, a ledger that I had, and I went, oh look, it's perfect. And I loved that. That was gorgeous. Now this one, this for me was all about storytelling. I mean, I tell a story about a lot of my postcards. This feather was an experiment that I did in my prep days that didn't quite work. It didn't give me what I wanted, but I kept it anyway. And this feather inspired the whole story about who Mary was and why there's a quill on there. So again, you have to watch video for that one, but loved this. Lots of you love this. This would make a perfect journal card. Absolutely a perfect journal card, or even a journal front. I mean, if you had a journal cover that was wider than 7 inch, what is this, 6 by 4, wider than 6 inches, that would make a great journal cover. I love that. Now, this is potentially one of my favorites. I mean, there's a couple of favorites I've already hinted at, but this one, I knew I wanted to do image transfer on the gel plate. So I had a few images that I transferred. This was the one that came out best, and the postcard just came together. It was if it was meant to be. Number 24 pretty much decorated itself, and I'm really, really happy with that. Was it a perfect gel image transfer? No. I had a little bit of dark go across her eye, and there's a couple of patches here where it was a little darker, but with creative stamping, I covered those up, and actually I don't mind that up there. It adds to the moodiness of it all. That was a really good one. This one I was playing around. I used a napkin again, but I wanted to play around with using a spare bit of a gel print as actually a border. So I made the border, and this was in honor of my friendship with Gail Augustinelli, because Gail is my little bunny girl. And by bunny girl, I do not mean someone with a tail on their back running around in a mansion. I do mean Gail's favourite creature is rabbits and bunnies. And she's got one in her yard who lives there. And so this for me, this is all for Gail. It's definitely for Gail. But I loved how this came out. So number 26, playing around again. This was a book page that I'd actually been cleaning paint off on, and I tore it out of the book, stuck it down, did some stamping, played around with how I would orientate the numbers, put a dragonfly in there because, you know, has to be a dragonfly in this collection because dragonflies are very significant to me. Some people would say spirit creature if you want to go down that route, but to me, a dragonfly is really significant to me. Absolutely adored this, and this was some foam stamps by PM Artist Studio. Not my design, their design, but that doesn't mean I don't love it any less. So loved that one. this one. This was inspired by Eddie Makes Art, Eddie Riaz. And Eddie had done a fish postcard, and I went, I've got fish. I can fussy cut fish. I want to do that. So I played around with the idea that if there were traffic lights or traffic signals under the ocean, like red, orange, green, or red, amber, green, whichever you call it, and it was downtown under the ocean, and all of these fish were waiting at the traffic lights to move on. Yeah, I loved it. And I do quite a bit of this nowadays, sort of faux stitching or decorating the edges. I love that. Okay, this is potentially my favorite card. And I think it's because there's just so much within it. This was a blank postcard that I then put paper onto, like text paper. I then used mixed media techniques over the top. I actually, on here, under here is actually part of a gel print as well, so that came onto it. The number here was actually stamped onto a bit of tissue as well, that was put in. This was an image from a Stamperio rice paper sheet, but this was a stencil by Rhonda Donar. I've never known the name of this stencil, but I love it. And so I put stencil butter through, I use wet mediums. A lot went into this little piece of art. The only thing I kind of wish hadn't happened was the face ended up the same color as the background because of the transparency of the rice paper. And I then went round and outlined it, which saved it. But in hindsight, if I'd have actually painted the back of the rice paper there a paler facial colour, then when I stuck it down, that colour wouldn't have come through. So we all learn lessons whatever art we do. Now this is a nod back to a style I do quite often when it comes to journaling. It's the whole like antiquarian look, the notebook in nature look, and I love playing around this. And this was inspired by one of my own pages I did the Marguerite Miller weekly collage challenge, I want to say 2 years ago now, and there was one page in there that I absolutely wanted to replicate. And this is what happened with it. So this young man here, dressed in his gorgeous little safari outfit, he wants to be an explorer. He wants to be a botanist, an archaeologist. He wants to be a natural person out in the environment, exploring the world. And all of these things are what his mind is surrounded by. Also, if this was a wall in his bedroom, say, then you get it. I loved it. And that number 29 from the free kit from PM Artist Studio was the perfect style for this as well. Very, very pleased with that. Now I did want to pull back and do something quite simple. So yes, there is a gel print here. This piece under here was a gel print. I want to say it came from Darcy Sanders in a swap or a Happy Mail or something. So I had that element on there. I found Art Practice in a magazine. The number 30 was an easy stamp, and I found this in a magazine. I went, you know, this is such a perfect rule for what we do. And when we think of art, the rule says, rules for today, be kind to yourself. If there's one thing we're not as artists, we are so critical of our own work. And I think sometimes we need to step back and go, you know what? I've been brave. I've created. I'm good at what I do. Did I enjoy it? Yes. Is it perfect? No, never going to be perfect. But if it pleases you, that's the only person it has to please. So I love that one. This was basically distress inks on a glass plate, which weren't done in the video, by the way. Basically spritzed with water, picked up, put some paint splatters on it. That's how that was created. But all of this bit was actually done in the video. And on to the very last one. Now, in my opinion, I'd spent the whole challenge avoiding using my gel plate any more than I absolutely had to. But I wanted one postcard to summarize the whole of the journey I'd been on in this challenge. So I made this one from the get-go, from start. We did a plain thing on I think it was an 8x10 gel plate. I think I had an 8x6 piece of cardstock so I could select and cut out sections. But this was about gel printing, about using tissue pieces. No, that was stamped. About using mark making. The numbers were on there. We did stamping on there. it just all came together. It was meant to be an abstract summary of the whole challenge, and I loved it. It was perfect. So I'm so pleased with this challenge, guys. That's a heck of a lot of work. Now, there is going to be a follow-up video, which you will see probably in a couple of hours' time, because I'm trying to do everything related to the postcard challenge all on the final day, 31st. So you will already have seen this video launched today. You will see this video launched today. And if I can get my finger into gear, we'll be doing the last summary video as well, where I want to talk about some of the people who have supported me. There's been some questions as well as to, are we doing it next year? Is it an annual thing? There's lots of questions. So I'm going to answer them in that. But for me, that was an absolute joy to do, and I loved it. And thank you to everyone who took part, from the smallest person to the biggest person, from the smallest channel on YouTube to the biggest channel on YouTube, to the companies out there who actually just helped make this amazing. So I loved that, absolutely loved it. So I'm Ceri the Crafter. That's CERI the Crafter, and this has been the hashtag GelyPostcardPlay. Goodbye now.